Cax and I were able to play a full game of Gempire, an upcoming game on Kickstarter, with its designer, Paul Elpers. Here we share our first impressions today on Legendary Tactics. So, we just finished our first game of Gempire.
Very interesting. Really
Yeah.
interesting game. Really liked it.
Like overall, let's start with the good stuff. I think that the way everything fits together works really well. I think the gems actually add a lot of neat combinations and planning and strategy.
I really like the balance that the game has. We actually talked about it with the creator there, of how, especially regarding the gems, that every level, no matter what color gem you go for, it's very equally weighted as far as value.
Yeah, and you're all going for the same goals, like the same, and the goals change every game, but everyone's kind of has the opportunity to go for the same objectives in order to win.
And I got to be honest with you, when I first heard that, in my head I was a little bit hesitant because I'm a fan of asymmetry. And
Yes.
so to not see that, I was like, okay, so we're just kind of racing around like a Monopoly board kind of idea. But I was proven very wrong. So,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that there's a lot of very interesting mechanics. I think the bidding for the buildings works very well. I think overall the city building aspect also works well. And the gems of and getting those gems as part of that, and I actually I think my favorite mechanic, even though it's kind of silly, is the rolling of the dice to get the production. I think that gave a lot of
really,
interesting.
that's interesting you say that because for me it definitely was the bidding on the different properties because I just found that to be very cagey. You have
Yes.
to just be it's such a poker game. Having played with four players, it's just really you just don't know who's doing what where and and who's how much they're going to willing to spend on the property that you're looking at. So
Yeah, and I think there's the opportunity as well to, if you notice that your opponents are low on production, you can walk in and take a bunch of buildings for, cheap, because so you can be opportunistic if you see an advantage in that sense, and you can jump on that.
I could see that happening a lot more. I could see that happening a lot more with a three-player game.
Yes.
And Paul, the creator, did mention that as you get more players into the game, it becomes more crowded, I guess you could
Yes.
say.
Yes. More chaotic. Less. Well, I could see less predictable because you'd have a lot more auctions that bids that were tied, and so you wouldn't be able to count on getting the building that you wanted. Because there's just too many other players in the mix. But as far as shortcomings, was there anything that struck you as?
I think maybe one of the drawbacks I had, and I don't know if this was just because we played on the digital platform or if if it actually would play through with the real tabletop version, is you get caught up in your own board. It's one of those games where you can kind of get muddled down in your own current build.
Yes.
And you're not. I don't know. I found myself less worried about the other players and more focused on what I was doing. To get to the goals there of the game.
Yeah, I think you do need to keep an eye on your opponents to see when they're close to winning. But other than that, yeah, you're kind of focusing on, your own situation,
your own board, your own build, right?
Yeah. So for me, there were kind of there's only really two shortcomings, and they're not necessarily shortcomings, but just two observations. One of them was, I mentioned earlier, I think the explaining the game can take a little while. There's a lot going on, and it's not, as you said, it's not complicated, but the explanation to go through and ask questions and take time to understand, you got to invest a bit of time in really understanding the rules well, because it's not a game you can just throw on the table and quick 5-10 minute explanation and everyone's on board and they go. It's,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a good half hour, 45 minutes, or even an hour explanation
Of
just
a
to make
walkthrough.
sure. Yeah. Just to make sure everyone understands. The other shortcoming I see, and again, this is not necessarily a shortcoming, but the game we played was really close, and there was like everyone was in range of winning or relatively so. But I could see if someone isn't a natural gamer or something, it could potentially be very harsh in that if you made a misplay or two, you could be out of the running and with no hope
Oh,
of.
you're gonna get slaughtered.
Yeah, like if you
Yeah.
if you built your city in the wrong way, or you misjudged a couple things, you could set yourself back big time. Overbidding on things and not getting enough science
Yeah.
and missing out on some technologies and so forth. Like if you didn't play it well, I could see against an experienced player like just getting destroyed. Which
Obliterated.
yeah,
Yes.
which might be discouraging to a new player, dependent possibly. I mean, you and I are experienced gamers, and we are used to picking up a new game and playing reasonably competently, just because that's
Yeah.
what we
Yeah.
do. But I could see for a more casual gamer, it could be perceived as being pretty harsh. If they make a misplay somewhere.
Well, there is a lot of different levers you can pull in this game, which is very fun,
Yes.
and provides a lot of opportunity. But on the other hand, yeah, you know what? If you if you're not really used to doing that or like experiencing that, then yeah, I could see it quite quickly going off the rails for you.
Yeah. Like just rules wise, it could be overwhelming because you could set up and play a game and figure it out. And then guess what? The next game you play, all the objectives are different. Everything, the palace is different. The tech is different, which is a great thing for replayability. But on the other side, you have to play a completely different game. And it could be. So what I might suggest is if someone was learning this game, they should play the same game with the same technologies available, the same objectives.
I was
Play
just
that
going to
at,
suggest
you
that.
know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. 100%. Or even if Paul's watching, maybe another idea might be to create like a starter game where it's like, the learner game scenario
Yes, something like
where it's
that.
like,
Yep.
use cards A, B, and C, right? Like and I've seen a lot of games do that where they'll say, "Hey, start out with this, get used to the mechanics, get used to the idea. It'll give you a good flavor for the game kind of thing. Or even throw it in the rules as a potential house rule, right?
Yeah, yeah, just have that as a scenario in the rules. Because if you'll recall, when we were learning Android Netrunner, I don't know if you remember this, but what we would do was we would play the same faction over and over and over again. So I picked a corp, and you were the runner, and we just played the same decks against each other over and over and over again. And then we tried a different deck.
That's right.
And then we played that deck over and over and over. And then eventually you internalize the game, and it's fine. Now we can pick up a deck we've never even seen before and play it. Once we've played a bit of it, we're like, okay, I
Right.
see what this
With
deck
some
is trying to do.
competency, right?
Yep, yep. So I think that if there was a
Exactly.
scenario like that, as you said, like just, hey, here's the starter scenario. This is how you should set it out, and just play this over and over again until you want some variety, and then change it up. I think that would be a huge.
Yeah.
It would be huge in terms of
huge
learning the
asset.
game, and I think it would ease people into it, and then once they figured it out, then the replayability is endless, right? And that's what's great is once you've got your hands on it. Then
Speaking of that, yeah, and I'm actually glad you brought that up because I think one other area that I guess I had maybe not concern, but something that it is to bear in mind is whenever you're getting you're building your own card row up of your buildings.
Yeah.
There's a number of buildings with text on them where it's like, when you have buildings to the right or to the left or a certain color beside or wherever, you
Yep.
add points to this particular card, right?
Yep.
And I found there was a lot of mathing to happen in there. And again, for those beginner scenarios, maybe it's, pull some of those more challenging counting cards out for now. until you kind of get a good grip on how the even the buildings are distributed and counted up, right?
Yes, yes, yeah. I think that would serve just the learning, because that would be my only concern is just learning the game quickly. Again, I'm just thinking as terms of the broader audience that's maybe used to playing Monopoly and Risk, and then you put this in front of them. You'd want to make sure that it was a positive experience out of the gate, and so then they keep coming back. That's and I think making the learning curve less steep would be really beneficial. But outside of that, and those are really, I mean, those aren't
Pretty
game
minor.
changers. They're pretty minor overall. The game itself, I think, is well worth checking out. I think it's an excellent game. I think it's very well balanced and well designed. And I'm looking forward to playing it again.
The artwork looked really, really great on it. I was impressed with the artistry of and what I'm told is it was the tabletop we played, but I'm told that that's the actual artwork that you'll be seeing in the hard copy game.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, no, the artwork was great. The cards, everything was very pretty. I'm interested to see the hard copy because, especially get some neat little plastic gems or whatever, or heck, even real gems.
And by the sounds of it, Paul's really spared no expense on having it look really sharp. So
I think it looks great. Yeah. But yeah, overall final verdict.
Oh, I think that one would make it back to the table for me. How about yourself?
Yes, I'd be inclined to as well to play it again. And I think for people who are experienced gamers like ourselves, I think by the time we played our second or third game, we'd really appreciate the variety and the different play styles and I think the different ways to win. I think I know Flash is big about having alternate paths to victory, and this game brings it.
Yeah, and actually, I know the creator Paul actually did even mention that in when we were chatting before our playthrough, as far as like he likes to find his own path to victory, like in his own strategy for the game, and that's one of the reasons he had everyone start out with the exact same options, is because he wanted people to figure out and utilize potentially common strategies among themselves, but that was out there. So
yeah. And I think that's, if there is any asymmetry, I think it comes into play throughout the game. People have different gem combinations. They have different buildings to think about. So if there is asymmetry, it does, each player does kind of take their own path, which is really neat. So yeah, so overall, I would recommend that you check out Gempire. As I said, it's a little bit on the heavier side to learn, but once you got it, it's a breeze to play. So thank you very much for tuning in for our first impressions review of Gempire, and we'll see you here next time.
This has been Legendary Tactics.